Have you ever pondered why Edgar Cayce, the most extensively documented psychic in American history, emphasized the importance of surrounding yourself with spiritual protection each night before sleep? What insights did the sleeping prophet gain from his 14,000 readings that led him to caution individuals about their souls being particularly vulnerable during the nighttime hours? If you're intrigued by Edgar Cayce's remarkable perspectives on consciousness and spiritual safeguarding, be sure to click that subscribe button and activate the notification bell. Today, we're delving into one of his most impactful yet often overlooked teachings, and I'd love to hear in the comments if you've ever sensed a spiritual presence at night. This evening, I'll share the precise prayer method that Edgar Cayce utilized personally and advised to countless individuals seeking protection from dark spiritual influences. In just a few minutes, you'll learn why Cayce asserted that prayer before bedtime is not merely comforting, but is truly vital for the safety of your soul. Before diving in, I must share an incredible reading that even astonished Cayce's stenographer. Reading 118 shifted our understanding of consciousness and sleep significantly. In 1932, a woman from Virginia Beach approached Cayce, filled with fear due to what she referred to as night attacks, during which she sensed dark entities attempting to siphon her spiritual energy while she was asleep. Despite consulting doctors, psychiatrists, and other psychics, she found no relief. Her desperation was palpable. Before I share what Cayce uncovered regarding her condition, it's essential to grasp a fundamental concept about how the soul functions while you sleep. Many individuals perceive sleep merely as a form of physical restoration. However, Cayce's readings illustrate that during this time, your soul actually departs from your physical body and explores other realms of consciousness. In reading 57541, Cayce disclosed some mind-blowing insights. He explained that during sleep, the soul doesn't simply rest, it embarks on journeys. It explores the Akashic records, engages with other souls, and even traverses what he termed the borderland between the physical and spiritual realms. Here's the frightening aspect that many individuals are unaware of. In the course of these soul journeys, you become spiritually exposed. Consider it this way. When you step outside your home, you secure the door to safeguard your possessions from intruders. However, when your soul departs your body, who is there to safeguard your spiritual sanctuary? This is precisely what the woman in Virginia Beach was enduring. During her nightly travels, her spirit was under assault from what Cayce referred to as earthbound spirits. I can anticipate your thoughts. Cayce may seem like a character from a horror film. However, keep in mind that we are discussing Edgar Cayce, the individual who identified ailments he had never personally encountered, anticipated the 1929 stock market collapse, and provided 14,000 documented readings, boasting an accuracy rate that continues to astound researchers today. In his reading for 262.8, Cayce offered this woman a transformative insight. He instructed her on a particular prayer method designed to form what he referred to as a spiritual barrier surrounding her awareness while she slept. However, this isn't merely an ordinary prayer. This prayer integrated three particular spiritual components that Cayce identified as crucial for safeguarding. The initial component was what he referred to as the Christ consciousness. Before assuming this is merely a religious notion, it's important to realize that Cayce was not promoting any specific denomination. He clarified that the Christ consciousness represents the ultimate spiritual frequency accessible to humanity, irrespective of their faith. It's akin to adjusting your soul to the most potent spiritual resonance in existence. However, there's additional information. The second component was referred to by Cayce as the light of protection. In his reading 281-13, he clarified that this isn't merely a metaphorical illumination. Instead, Cayce represents a genuine spiritual energy enveloping your aura, forming a shield that negative entities cannot breach. You can envision it as a spiritual force field that functions on frequencies inaccessible to dark spirits. The third aspect was what Cayce referred to as the affirmation of one's connection to the divine. In this step, you consciously acknowledge your bond with the ultimate source of all that exists. According to Cayce, making this declaration genuinely alters your spiritual frequency and renders you unnoticeable to lower spiritual beings that are drawn to fear and negativity. Here's the specific prayer method that Cayce provided to a woman in Virginia Beach, which he also suggested to countless others who sought his guidance for spiritual safeguarding. Before we delve into that, let me share what transpired for her after she began utilizing this prayer. After only 3 nights of practicing Cayce's prayer method, the woman noted that the nighttime disturbances had entirely ceased. For the first time in several months, she began to enjoy restful sleep. Furthermore, she shared that she began experiencing remarkably vivid dreams in which she received insights about her life's purpose and spiritual growth. As per Cayce's teachings, this occurs because when you effectively guard your soul while sleeping, you're not merely warding off negative influences. By doing this, you are allowing yourself to be receptive to uplifting spiritual guidance from your higher self and spiritual mentors. It's akin to eliminating the noise from a radio in order to enjoy the lovely melodies that have always existed. Now, let me introduce you to the prayer method that Edgar Cayce personally utilized and imparted to countless others. However, before I proceed, it's crucial for you to recognize that this goes beyond merely repeating phrases. Cayce highlighted that the effectiveness of this prayer is rooted in the heartfelt intention and authentic faith supporting it. The prayer opens by recognizing the presence of the divine. According to Cayce, one should commence with the words, "Father, as I get ready for sleep, I fully submit myself to your protection and guidance." This act creates a link to the supreme spiritual source and expresses your readiness to be led by divine insight. Following this is what Cayce referred to as the Christ light invocation. You mention that you envelop yourself in the radiant white light of Christ consciousness. This light encompasses your whole essence, forming a shield that no harmful energy can breach. Cayce emphasized the importance of imagining this white light. You need to visualize it in your mind's eye, encircling your entire self like a cocoon of spiritual safeguarding. The next step is the soul journey blessing. In this moment, you express that as your spirit journeys through the night, you seek guidance exclusively towards realms of knowledge and affection. You welcome your spiritual guides and guardian angels to join you on this adventure. Cayce emphasized that this segment of the prayer helps ensure that your soul's nighttime explorations are constructive and enriching, instead of aimless or perilous. The prayer wraps up with a phrase known as the return affirmation, where you declare, "I have faith that my soul will come back to my body rejuvenated and revitalized, carrying insights and comprehension that will benefit my greatest purpose." This section guarantees that you will awaken with a sense of spiritual vitality instead of feeling exhausted. But there's something remarkable to consider. Cayce didn't simply instruct on this prayer and stop there. He provided detailed guidance on how to amplify its effectiveness. In reading 262-15, he clarified that the prayer ought to be recited while lying down in bed, with your hands resting over your heart. He asserted that this establishes a tangible link between your conscious awareness and your spiritual heart center. He also suggested taking 3 deep breaths before starting the prayer, envisioning that with each inhalation, you are drawing in pure spiritual light while releasing any fear or negativity with each exhalation. Cayce stated that this breathing method aids in elevating your spiritual vibration, thereby enhancing the effectiveness of the prayer. Now I want to share another remarkable case that illustrates the impact of this prayer technique. In 1934, a New York businessman consulted Cayce due to experiencing what he described as spiritual attacks during his sleep. He would awaken feeling entirely depleted, as though something had been siphoning his energy throughout the night. In the course of reading 1947-3, an astonishing revelation came to light. Cayce informed the individual that he was, in fact, under attack by the earthbound spirit of a deceased business partner who had passed away while harboring resentment towards him. This spirit was exploiting the man's sleep to perpetuate their earthly dispute on a spiritual plane. Can you fathom the realization that an acquaintance from your past was still troubling you from the afterlife? Cayce provided this man with a prayer method similar to others, but included an extra component. He instructed him to also express, "I pardon all those who have harmed me in this life or in any past existence, and I free them for their highest benefit." Cayce clarified that this aspect of forgiveness severs the spiritual link that permits earthbound spirits to connect with us. Within a week of implementing this improved prayer method, the businessman noted that not only did the nocturnal assaults cease, but he also began to receive insights in his dreams regarding lucrative business prospects. This exemplifies the remarkable strength of effective spiritual protection during slumber. It not only repels negative energies, it serves as a gateway to uplifting spiritual guidance. However, this is where Cayce's insights become particularly intriguing. In reading 57542, he clarified that the primary reason many individuals fail to recognize their need for spiritual protection while sleeping is due to the conditioning that frames sleep merely as physical recuperation. In reality, sleep is the period when your soul engages in its most crucial activities. While you rest, your soul reflects on the lessons you've absorbed throughout the day. Processes, emotional experiences, and communication with other souls essential for your spiritual growth are all part of what Cayce referred to as soul school. However, without adequate protection, this wonderful journey can be interrupted by negative entities that are drawn to an unprotected mind. Consider it like this. Just as your physical body is equipped with an immune system to defend against harmful bacteria and viruses, however, your soul requires safeguarding from detrimental spiritual forces as well. The prayer method that Cayce shared functions similarly to a spiritual immune system, ensuring your soul remains vibrant and robust. There's an intriguing insight that Cayce disclosed, which many individuals are unaware of. In reading 281-4, he stated that individuals who consistently employ spiritual protection while sleeping tend to enhance their psychic abilities over time. This occurs because their souls can navigate more freely and securely during slumber, thereby broadening their spiritual awareness. Numerous clients of Cayce shared that following the application of his prayer method for a few weeks, they started experiencing prophetic dreams, gaining insights into their life purpose, and even establishing positive connections with departed loved ones. This illustrates the remarkable blessing that accompanies effective spiritual safeguarding. However, Cayce also cautioned about an important aspect. In reading 136-27, he clarified that spiritual protection goes beyond merely uttering the correct phrases. It involves sustaining an appropriate spiritual mindset in your everyday life. If you cling to feelings of anger, resentment, or fear, you're diminishing your spiritual vibration and increasing your susceptibility to negative spiritual forces. This is the reason Cayce consistently stressed the importance of merging spiritual protection with ongoing spiritual growth. He suggested practices such as meditation, prayer, and acts of kindness toward others as effective methods for sustaining a high spiritual vibration that can naturally ward off negative entities. I'd like to share another remarkable instance that illustrates the effectiveness of integrating spiritual protection with daily spiritual practices. In 1938, a teacher from California sought Cayce's help due to distressing nightmares that were hindering her ability to work with children. The reading 2067-1 indicated that this woman possessed psychic sensitivity, enabling her to perceive the fears and worries of her students throughout the day. As a result, these pent-up negative emotions manifested as nightmarish scenarios in her dreams during the night. She was essentially experiencing her students' anxieties while sleeping. Cayce suggested a prayer technique for her spiritual protection, but he also advised her to dedicate 10 minutes each morning to sending love and light to all of her students. He explained that this daily ritual would foster a positive spiritual bond between her and her students, shielding both parties from adverse psychic influences. The outcomes were astounding. Her nightmares ceased completely, and she mentioned that her students became more composed and attentive during lessons. Numerous parents noted that their kids appeared to be more joyful and assured following their sessions with her. This showcases the remarkable effectiveness of integrating spiritual protection with uplifting spiritual practices. As we conclude this fascinating exploration of Edgar Cayce's guidance on spiritual safety during sleep, I'd like to highlight the key takeaway from his readings. While discussing 262.289, Cayce articulated that spiritual protection involves more than merely warding off negativity. It entails fostering an environment conducive to positive spiritual enhancement and growth. By effectively safeguarding your soul during slumber, you do more than achieve restful sleep. You establish the groundwork for spiritual enlightenment, psychic advancement, and divine insight. Essentially, you are unlocking the pathway to elevated awareness and spiritual progress. The prayer method that Cayce shared serves not only as a safeguard, but also as a potent instrument for spiritual growth that has the potential to change your life significantly. Those who frequently apply this method often report not only improved sleep and a reduction in nightmares, but also heightened intuition, a clearer sense of life purpose, and a deeper connection with their spiritual guides. If you found this discussion of Edgar Cayce's insights on spiritual protection intriguing, please click the like button and share this video with anyone who could benefit from these remarkable ideas. Additionally, make sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you won't miss our future videos on Edgar Cayce's prophecies, healing methods, and explorations into consciousness and reincarnation. But here's a surprising revelation about Edgar Cayce's prayer technique. In reading 294-136, he disclosed that individuals who regularly practice this form of spiritual protection experience more than just safer sleep. They start to cultivate what he referred to as soul memory, which is the capacity to recall their spiritual experiences during the night and retrieve useful insights for their everyday lives. In 1940, a factory worker from Detroit sought Cayce's help due to persistent nightmares about a catastrophic incident at his workplace. The dreams were so intense and terrifying that he contemplated resigning. However, what's astonishing is that Cayce's reading uncovered that these were not merely nightmares. These were truly prescient alerts from the higher self of the individual. While interpreting 1538-1, Cayce instructed him to employ the spiritual protection prayer, but with an important modification. Once he established this protection, he needed to request his soul to reveal to him how to avert the accident he had been dreaming about. The outcomes were remarkable. Just 2 weeks after implementing this improved method, the man dreamed about the specific machine that would fail and the timing of the malfunction. He shared his vision with his supervisor, who first considered him to be insane. However, upon examining the machine, they discovered a tiny crack in an essential part that could have led to a disastrous malfunction within days. The man's prayer for spiritual protection had truly preserved lives. This demonstrates the remarkable effectiveness of Cayce's method when applied with total belief and the right intention. Now, this is where Cayce's teachings take on an even more intriguing dimension. In the analysis of 262.52, he noted that some individuals who report experiencing sleep paralysis or night terrors are actually undergoing their souls rushing back into their bodies too swiftly following a spiritual journey. This phenomenon resembles spiritual whiplash. However, the protective prayer facilitates what Cayce referred to as a gentle return pathway, allowing for a smooth reintegration of the soul into the body. In 1941, a nurse from Chicago reached out to Cayce, recounting horrifying instances where she would awaken paralyzed, with the sensation of an immense weight pressing down on her chest. While modern medicine attributed this condition to sleep paralysis, Cayce perceived a deeper significance. Being 21-243 revealed that this nurse was inherently a spiritual healer, and during her sleep, her soul was summoned to assist earthbound spirits in their transition to the afterlife. The issue stemmed from her lack of spiritual protection, which resulted in lost souls draining her energy and triggering episodes of paralysis. Cayce provided her with a protection prayer and emphasized the importance of adding, "I am willing to serve, but only under divine protection and guidance." This modification enabled her to assist spirits while ensuring her own spiritual safety. The change was astonishing. Not only did the sleep paralysis cease, but she also began experiencing dreams that directed her to particular patients at the hospital in need of her healing abilities. Her supervisor observed that patients seemed to recover more swiftly during her sessions, although she never shared her nighttime spiritual practices with anyone. However, there's an even more astonishing insight that Cayce shared regarding spiritual safety while sleeping. In his reading 57548, he stated that when you adequately shield your soul during slumber, you're not solely safeguarding yourself. In fact, you're playing a role in the spiritual defense of your whole family and even your community. Consider this. If your soul journeys safely and gains divine insights as you sleep, you awaken as a more positive, loving, and spiritually attuned individual. That elevated vibration influences those in your vicinity. Your family experiences increased tranquility. Your colleagues maintain a calmer demeanor, and you inherently draw more positive events into your life. This phenomenon is what Cayce referred to as the ripple effect of spiritual safeguarding. When an individual employs effective spiritual protection, they can genuinely elevate the spiritual frequency of an entire home or work environment. It resembles the role of a spiritual lighthouse, providing guidance to others without their awareness. Here's a final example that will astonish you regarding the effectiveness of Cayce's nighttime prayer method. In 1943, a mother from Virginia Beach sought Cayce's help due to her young son experiencing horrifying nightmares and speaking of shadowy figures that appeared to him at night. Although he was just 6 years old, he could vividly detail these beings, which frightened his parents. Analyzing 206711 uncovered something remarkable. This child was, in fact, a deeply spiritually attuned individual who had come into this life to assist earthbound spirits in achieving tranquility. However, without adequate safeguards, He was becoming inundated by the powerful nature of these spiritual interactions. Cayce instructed the mother on a revised version of the protection prayer that she could recite over her slumbering child. This prayer featured an extra component. I envelop my child with the love and safeguarding of every angel and archangel. I request that solely the highest spiritual entities be permitted to connect with his soul while he sleeps. In just a week, the nightmares ceased entirely. However, the fascinating aspect was that the child started experiencing lovely dreams centered around guiding lost souls towards the light. Years later, this same individual matured into a revered spiritual counselor, assisting thousands in navigating their grief and loss. The child's mother consistently attributed his healing to Cayce's protective prayer, believing it not only spared her son from spiritual distress, but also fostered his innate abilities in a safe and nurturing environment. This remarkable heritage of Edgar Cayce's method for spiritual protection goes beyond simply warding off negative entities. It involves establishing a secure spiritual space that nurtures our souls, enabling them to develop, learn, and fulfill their highest potential. By safeguarding our souls while we sleep, we are not acting out of fear or defensiveness. Instead, we are demonstrating our wisdom as spiritual beings who recognize the value of consciousness and the importance of its protection. Keep in mind that your soul is invaluable and warrants safeguarding. This evening, as you prepare for rest, consider using Edgar Cayce's profound prayer method and observe how it not only enhances your sleep, but also influences your entire spiritual path. Wishing you pleasant dreams, and may your soul journey securely across the dimensions of awareness.